Hello everybody and welcome into today's live video. It is Monday, the 12th of December, 2022. My name is Kerry Holzman and thank you so much for tuning in. I, from time to time, feel the necessity of reminding viewers, both long-term and new viewers, about what the goal of my channel is. Well, I enjoy and appreciate suggestions and participation in questions asked during live chat. Sometimes we get folks either new to the channel or who have forgotten that my goal here in this channel is to keep everything simple. I'm trying to make computers more approachable. This is more of an older generation thing, right? People over 40, generally speaking, while there are people of all ages that computers remain a mystery. It's more so an older generation. So I'm trying to find a kind and simple way to introduce people to do more with the computer that they find scary or intimidating or complicated. I try to decomplicate by using plain English and simple examples and analogies in order to make the technology less intimidating and more approachable. In doing so, sometimes my analogies aren't exactly technically accurate, but they aren't meant to be. I'm not trying to turn anybody into a computer technician here, but I have inspired many of you to become computer technicians because I get your emails that tell me, and I'm delighted. I've also inspired many people to use their computer more and to do more with it once I've helped them to eliminate some of the intimidation that was keeping them from trying. Both of those are wonderful consequences of what I'm trying to accomplish here, and if nothing else, help gauge or open your mind to possibilities to what can be done with your computer, whether those are tasks you want to accomplish, a career change, or just simply improving the performance and reliability, or being able to potentially fix your computer when things aren't working. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm introducing you, the viewer, to concepts and ideas that I hope, my goal, are simple to understand. And then if that interests you, if that seed takes hold and you want to learn more, I would hope I have also taught you to be self-reliant, to go out to Google or look for other content here on YouTube that dives deeper into that specific subject matter. Because here with computers, there's so many different ways they can be used for different reasons. I couldn't possibly cover it in a lifetime. And if I did, only fewer than 10% of you would likely be interested in that specific content, while the other 90% would feel alienated. So what brought this up? Lately, I've been getting some pretty complex questions, and I will do my best to give a simple answer, but quite often when the complex questions are being asked, I'd like to take a step back and say, well, why are you asking that complex question? What is it that you are trying to accomplish? And we have a long-time loyal viewer who joins us from Norway. He goes in the chat room by the name Oystein. I don't know if he's in there today. And if you're out there, Oystein, always happy to see you in our chat. But Oystein asked a question the other day about wanting me to demonstrate how to put a VPN service on a router. And I was reluctant to cover that. Because a lot of enthusiasts do that for reasons of wanting to watch shows that are being region blocked. That seems to be the most common. Or they feel that they're being watched even though there's no evidence of anything negative ever happening to them, but they want that added security. But it comes with a deficit. It will always come at a cost of performance. My internet connection, if I put VPN on my router, goes down by 2/3. My performance drops 2/3, at least at Studio B. So that's a heavy consequence. So I asked myself, why do I need it? Now, That is not for me to say whether or not you need it. You may just want to do it because you're curious how it all works. You've heard a lot about it, I'm sure. You probably have some misunderstandings about exactly what it's doing for you. Most people do. Some people think if they have a VPN on, it prevents them getting swatted or things like that, which is just simply not true. Now, I don't want to alienate anybody. I don't want to alienate the advanced user, even though I'm not really, the whole platform here isn't for advanced users. From time to time, I may cover somewhat advanced subject matter. And sometimes I feel like people are asking me to test me. Does he really know this? Let's quiz him, right? Which is a little odd from my perspective. So, in the video notes below this video today, I have included is there three channels? Well, certainly at least two. I have to go back and look at my own notes. Okay, one is called PowerCert. Geez, I will have to go look at my video notes. The PowerCert animated, see now I've already, hold on a second, I have to go and look at my video notes. The PowerCert animated video channel. These are wonderful educational videos that are completely animated that are designed to teach you at a level of where you could be asked these questions in a job interview or for certification. These are professional series educational videos. Then there's another level above that, specifically focused on networking. And this channel that I'm referring to is called NetworkChuck. Now, NetworkChuck, it's all one word, has been around a while. There's like 2.5 million subscribers to this channel. He's extremely enthusiastic. The types of videos that he makes are very complex subject matter, but he does it in a way that's easy to follow if you're at that amateurish level, like a level above enthusiast, going a little bit higher than that. And you may not understand exactly why you're following the steps he's showing you, but if you do follow all the steps, he includes every click to get whatever the subject of the video is done. And everything from setting up a pfSense firewall to creating your own, basically, PBX business phone system in the cloud for free, or at least it's free for 12 months. He is very quick. He's very knowledgeable. And, there's a lot of content that goes right over my head that even I will watch that and go, okay, this is interesting. I want to find out why this is this way or this is that way. So it plants that seed. And then he's typically got other videos that will go into more depth on each little subject if you want more depth. And then there's the IT Pros channel. So I know I'm getting some of these channel names screwed up. They are in the video notes below the video. But these would be my go-tos. Like if you wonder where would I go to get some tech content at a professional level, those three channels, those are my go-tos. And specifically NetworkChuck, like for example, with Oystein's question on VPN, well, I felt it was much more complicated than this channel would cover because, again, I think 90+% of you would just tune out. You're not interested. NetworkChuck will show you the 3 different ways to do it, and it'll explain why somebody might do it that way and demonstrate what services and etc. And NetworkChuck, like myself, may tell you, I'm not going to demonstrate this particular part because depending on what router you have, for example, it's different for everyone. But this is the gist of it, right? You have to have at least enough knowledge to take what he's telling you and apply it to the hardware that you have. I can't speak highly enough, specifically of the NetworkChuck channel. But I will tell you, I think for most of you, you'll watch that and you'll say, holy cow, this stuff, I had no idea it was this complicated. NetworkChuck has a video where he's asking, will his dad, who is an IT infrastructure engineer, will he lose his job because of all these things now going to the cloud? And what are the thoughts on this? Oh, I was fascinated by that video. And I was also fascinated that his dad is a network guy, and Chuck is, or I guess his name is David, is also a network guy. So seems to run in the family. Have any of you in the chat watched any of NetworkChuck? I also want to mention in the video notes my link to Instant House Call remote support software. This is not software specifically designed for you to have remote access to your own computer, although you could use it that way. It is designed for technicians to do work on computers you've never connected to before, or to do work on computers you have connected to, basically unattended and attended access, that has tools built into the remote software typically used when diagnosing or repairing computers remotely. So it's more than just a remote software. That's why I say it's not just remote software, though it could be used that way. The reason I say that is a school bus isn't a single person's form of transportation. It's designed to transport, 30, 40, 50 people, etc. But you could use it to transport one person. It's a bit overkill for the job. So, well, Instant House Call will work for your own personal remote access needs. It is truly designed for the IT professional or someone offering repair services remotely, whether you're just getting started or you're well into the industry. It's worth checking out at instanthousecall.com. It's a 15-day free trial. If that's not enough time, you can reach out to the owner and say, hey, could I get a little more free time with this? I'm still making up my mind. The software is very, very affordable. What I like my viewers to do is to make up your own minds. That's why when people say, which is better, this or that, I want you to decide which is better. If somebody says, well, should I do this or should I do that? My default answer is always going to be, do what you feel you want to do or you should do. I'm encouraging you to be self-reliant. I'm encouraging you to have experiences. I'm encouraging you to have failures. If you're not failing, you're not learning. If you're doing everything and everything's always working, you're only confirming what you already know. So there's not a whole lot of growth there to expand our horizons and our skill set. So some people will sometimes see my answers as a bit harsh, but what I'm trying to do is encourage you to say, hey, you can do this. You don't need my help for that. Let me just point you in the right direction and set you on your way. And then if you have a problem that results from that attempt, wherever that happens, and doing the search to find the information or interpreting the information or an unexpected consequence of the information, come on in here. And once again, we can help you get back up, get that straightened out and untangled and back on your way. But we want you to go at your pace, at your comfort level, to do the things you want to do, you need to do, either way. In business, people don't generally call me and hire me to do things they want to do. It happens, but mostly the calls that I get are calls of desperation. They're not calling me because they have extra money burning in their pocket and they're like, can I give you some money and I'll find something for you to do when you get here? That doesn't happen. They're calling me because my computer's down, my world has stopped, I am screwed. Can you help me? And it could be anything from networking issues, data loss issues, thefts. I can't even go on with all the possibilities. And it's kept me busy in this industry professionally since 1991. But when we get on the internet, especially here on YouTube, we see a lot of content from amateurs and enthusiasts. And that's great. It's wonderful. But you as the viewer need to understand, I hope, in my opinion, you need to understand who's making the content. so that you have a good foundation for the type of information you're getting, so you apply the information correctly. That's all I'm trying to do. Somebody might be a fan of baseball, or for that matter, any sport, and they might play it regularly. And then you have the professional sports. You have the NBA, the NFL, at least here in America, NHL. If you're playing baseball, and I'm just going to stick with the baseball analogy, and you've been playing it for a while and you consider yourself a baseball expert, do you think there's any difference between you and the professional player that plays for the I just lost the acronym, for a professional baseball team? I would suggest that the professional, the one that wears the uniform, that gets paid to do the job, whether it's paid a lot or paid a little, the fact that they're getting paid, I would suggest that they know more and have more experience at that job. And if somebody says, well, I have just as much experience and I can play better than them, which a lot of people do on the internet when it comes to anything, they challenge the professionals constantly, then my question is, well, why aren't you the professional? Why don't I see you in the uniform as part of the team? If you're that good, what a crime that you've been, the whole industry is suffering because they could have this person that's so amazing. Imagine if Michael Jordan never played basketball, but instead just went on the internet and said, I can play basketball just as good as Scottie Pippen, better than Charles Barkley, whatever. Okay. Imagine my attitude would be, sure you can. So that's sort of the peanut gallery, right? That's the noise, the comments, the forums. And it's hard to decipher the information source. If I'm getting tips and suggestions on how to play basketball coming from Michael Jordan, he has my full attention. I'm listening to an expert. If I'm watching somebody I never heard of who has a popular basketball channel talk about theory, this is how many times you can dribble the ball, this is the furthest, whatever, this is the stance you should have. Interesting, entertaining, but it's, in most cases, theory. Now, we can theorize all day. The theories in IT, especially here in the enthusiast side of things, many of which I consider preposterous. Theories of how to apply thermal compound that people obsess about. Theories about positive air pressure and negative air pressure. It's preposterous, ridiculous, is not discussed more or less ever in professional IT work because it doesn't actually matter. Now, there's always exceptions, all right? So the average viewer is watching this and thinking this is important when it isn't, unless under certain circumstances, such as overclocking. And then overclocking, you're not going to do, again, in the professional world, it typically isn't done. There will always be some minor exceptions, but that's like 1% of all the jobs out there, if that would involve overclocking. So that information is interesting. A lot of it's very theoretical. And people talk about, well, what's a good way to store data for a long period of time? Well, anyway, right? Well, no, data fades out of mechanical hard drives or solid state drives. That's theory. No one's ever proven that. No one's ever demonstrated a drive sitting for so long that the data no longer exists on it. Now, if you have a video or a source, an official source, demonstrating that to exist, please share it with us, because I'd like to see it. So we have average viewers obsessing about things that just don't happen, that are all based entirely on theory, and that content was typically learned from or perpetuated by another enthusiast. Highly doubt any professional has demonstrated that. Now, some people consider researchers as professionals. IT researchers deal in theory, and they might deal in a proof of concept of what's possible. So you have two different types of research. You have the kind of research that says, this is theoretically possible, and then you have proof of concept, which says, under all of these very specific conditions, this potential issue exists. And they're not wrong, but oftentimes, for all the stars to align for that to happen, it's very unlikely in most cases. However, the work they do is very important because it alerts manufacturers to those potentials, and they can seal those up so that even if they weren't ever going to happen, they can guarantee it isn't going to happen now once they've been made aware of it, and they can patch that little hole before it becomes a big hole. However, it doesn't mean just because a security researcher says something that you need to panic or that you need to immediately do something. Typically, when there is a serious threat or concern, it will be covered in the news media, regular news media. You're not likely going to learn about something only online on a YouTube video or a Reddit forum. That's some critical information you need to know. If it were really true, that critical information would be in all of the popular media. So, bear that in mind. You might see it first. It's possible. You might see it first before the mainstream media picks it up. But, we very rarely see mainstream media covering viruses anymore. But the big viruses, 10, 15 years ago, the media used to get out and be part of the news. So just keep all that in mind. I'm kind of curious if any of you are subscribed to or watch NetworkChuck. I'm going to scroll through the chat, see what comments I've been missing. If you have any questions for me, please ask. I'll do my best to point you to an answer, and always watch the chat room for other viewers and moderators providing an answer, which is typically different than mine and not more or less any valid, or in most cases might be even more valid than mine. So do watch the chat room for answers to your questions besides just me. And then decide which answer you like better, right? Or try them all out and see which one works best for you. John Williams says, Kerry, without you, I would know nothing at all. I wanted to thank you for all you've taught me over the last 4 years since I retired. Oh, that's very kind of you, John. Well, thank you. I can't teach anybody that doesn't want to learn or thinks they already know everything. So it's very kind of you to say that. Luke Greenia joins us. Welcome in, Luke. Matthew Burton says he subscribes to NetworkChuck. Always interesting. Matthew, how often do the video concepts at NetworkChuck go over your head? I will tell you, I see NetworkChuck do stuff that he considers to be fun. Like, let me show you how to set up a pfSense router. And I just think, just buy a router and plug it in. You don't need all that control. Diagnosing that is going to be a nightmare. However, the people that I know that run pfSense routers, it ties into what they do for a living. I have network administrators as friends, many of whom have a server in their house, a proper full-size rack. I say, man, what are you doing with that in your house? Hey, I got to stay sharp. It's what I do for a living. So I keep myself sharp by having my own server and by working with it every day and running my own projects on it. It keeps me sharp for work. Oh, I get it. Makes total sense. Yeah, we have these Juniper and Cisco firewalls, and the pfSense is kind of similar to some of these adjustments, and I have managed switches. Most home users don't need a managed switch or VLANs, okay? And those who have them The ones that I know, it's not far from what they do for a living. It ties in together. I'll tell you, it's just weird to see a server rack in somebody's house. It's very weird. I'm like, you must not be married. There's a server rack right in the middle of the living room. Seriously? That's weird. Stephen Anderson says, Kerry, I see NetworkChuck over my head, but I'd like to learn. Yeah, exactly. I will tell you, the great thing about NetworkChuck is his enthusiasm, his knowledge, and he covers every little detail. So if you follow along with him, he'll even tell you, don't worry about that. You know, we'll explain this in another video, but for now, just to keep this video moving, to get us to our goal, just follow this. And then if you go back and research in his channel for that subject matter that he said, you know, we'll cover it another time, you'll have another 20, 30-minute video. These are all edited videos, by the way. All the ones I'm seeing are heavily edited. I believe he has an editor. I don't think he's doing the editing himself. The way he explains things is very, very good. It's very humorous, which makes the IT stuff is so dry. So to keep it funny or to throw a little humor in there from time to time keeps it entertaining, keeps me personally from clicking away from the dryness of it. So he's very good at that. He's got this little tablet and pencil he'll use to draw things on the screen, whereas most people would use, you know, some piece of software to draw boxes and such in post-production. He's doing that as he's recording it. He'll draw arrows and circles and write things right on the screen. That's a really cool teaching method. So that's a very clever solution he's come up with. And his enthusiasm is quite addicting. The difference, though, is the type of information that NetworkChuck is providing, I think will make it very clear that you don't see enthusiasts doing this level of work or have this level of understanding of why. So there are enthusiasts who can say, for example, here's how you do this complicated thing. But when you ask them, how come this, what does this do, or what's this called? They necessarily can't always answer that. They just say, well, this is what it does to make it work. It's like ritualizing versus totally understanding the process. And so a lot of times NetworkChuck will detail out the reasons why and even break down all of the technology terms at a level that, you know, the question to ask yourself, I suppose, would be, if you watch a NetworkChuck video and then I quiz you on the things he talked about, do you think you'd be able to pass that test? Because a professional will be dealing with what NetworkChuck is talking about 5 days a week, at least, for years. Not just watching one video and going, okay, I got it. You know, it takes constant repetition for this stuff to sink in, at least for most people. Ethan says, I've watched most of his video. I learned a lot, helped me save my PC from from a reset due to a system error in Kali Linux. Yeah, he covers Linux. He does a lot of networking stuff, VoIP, cloud stuff. He's talking about stuff I never heard of, like this current generation of containers in cloud servers and something called Kubernetes. Yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know. It won't benefit me to know it because I don't do that level of IT work. And I'm like, what's he talking about? Kubernetes. How long has that been a thing? Do you know how long that's been a thing?
About 8 years.
About 8 years? That sounds about right. There's a hit song on the radio about 8 years ago I heard for the first time today. I'm like, this is a great song. You just heard that for the first time? Because it doesn't follow in my career, right? I don't do that kind of work. So that stuff is happening over here. My career's over here, but I'm still fascinated. How long has this been a thing? There are certain staples in professional IT equipment, hardware, that still exists today, like Cisco and Juniper, etc. But this cloud-based stuff, it's evolving so quickly, like Amazon Web Services, the AWS. It's amazing how much of the internet AWS is providing. You're probably using it when you go to websites, when you buy things, even if it's not from Amazon. Even if it's an Amazon competitor, there's a good chance AWS is involved in it. You know, NetworkChuck will show you how to set up a free AWS account and create a free virtual server to put something like Linux on for you to learn and play with and screw it all up and break it. That's cool. That's really cool for those people that are interested. But that was never my goal here. My goal wasn't to get to that level of content. So what ends up happening is, of course, we attract all kinds of viewers. Some of those viewers are more advanced, and they'll ask more advanced questions that I'm hesitant on answering because I'm afraid I might lose a bunch of viewers. On the other hand, as I mentioned earlier, I don't want to alienate anybody. So I'd rather point you in that direction. I think most of you that watch my channel are going to look at any video NetworkChuck does and go, holy cow, none of this is anything I would ever do. It seems over the top. But then there'll be a few of you that go, wow, what a great resource. I love this, right? So for those fewer people that this would appeal to, I hope you utilize that as a resource. I certainly do. Or if you want to study for an exam, for certifications in IT, that's another great resource that points you, again, you know, he's there promoting the ITProTV, which is, you know, a place to go to learn professionally about what is mostly high-end equipment. Now, the vast majority of viewers overall on YouTube are all going to be enthusiasts. There's not a lot of professionals coming back to YouTube to learn about their own careers. Why would they? But do understand, when you're watching content from some of the biggest, most popular tech channels, what you're watching a lot of times is a paid sponsorship or an enthusiast who, and again, nothing, I'm not putting that down at all. You might be misinterpreting what I'm saying. I'm not suggesting that pros are better. It's just different. And so the level of information you're getting, you should be considering your source. So once again, if I'm being told how to play basketball by somebody I've never heard of on Reddit versus a professional basketball player, I'm going to weigh the information differently. I'm going to value the information accordingly. And I'm recommending you do that the same as it pertains to your specific needs. You might be more drawn towards enthusiast videos because they don't go into some of the subject matter or detail that a professional would need in understanding how it all works. It's sort of like a cooking recipe. I can give you all the measurements and all the ingredients, but that doesn't explain the chemical processes and why is there always this ingredient whenever this other ingredient is used. I don't know why, that's just the way it is. You want to make bread, it doesn't matter what kind of bread you want to make. For the most part, you know, French bread, Italian bread, ciabatta, whatever, there's lots of bread. All breads typically have 5 ingredients: water, flour, yeast, salt. That's 4, I'm missing one. Sugar. Water, flour, yeast, salt, sugar. And it's just different combinations. But why? So some people are like, I don't care why, just give me the recipe. And other people are like, oh, well, if I can understand why, then maybe I can create my own thing. I can take the reason makes the combination makes French bread, and this combination makes, I don't know, pita bread. Maybe I'll make a French pita bread. Now that I understand the differences and how this all works, I can create my own combination. Or you can just create your own combination and guess, but I would be very curious what your success ratio would be. So it's not for everybody to need those details. However, when you are working as a professional, that's a key ingredient to getting the job. Michael Dane has a question. What's the best software to make sure your graphics card fans are running right? That's not a question that I could answer, but maybe somebody in the chat room has a suggestion. Is there a problem you're trying to solve, Michael? Feral Sparky asks Michael, are you worried they are failing? He replies, not really, I'm just wanting to check them out. Feral Sparky wants to know if it's an AMD or an NVIDIA graphics card. Michael Dane says it's an NVIDIA graphics card. Feral Sparky says use the MSI Afterburner software. Okay, see, I didn't even know, so there you go. That you don't have to have an MSI graphics card, apparently. A couple of contributions have come in through Super Chat, and a shout out and a thank you to XRod666, who's contributed $5 in Super Chat. It says, whoa, Carrie's streaming machine this week. Great. Oh, Carrie is a streaming machine this week. Great job. Just trying to make up for some time, XRod666. Thank you for supporting the channel. There's our good friend and Purple Heart recipient, Marvin Jameson, with a $20 Super Chat contribution. Thank you, Marvin. Always good to see our pal Marvin in the chat. John Doe says, I'm still trying to learn how to use the self-checkout at the supermarket. I'm positive NetworkChuck would be over my head. But see, whether or not something's over your head is entirely up to you. I can teach people what I know, but I can't give them the motivation to want to learn. It's like hypnosis. A lot of people that do hypnosis, hypnotists, will say that they cannot hypnotize somebody who doesn't want to be. So that's our first barrier. Somebody's got to say, I'm interested. I want to learn more. If we don't get that right out of the gate, trying to teach them is a waste of everyone's time. So if you've convinced yourself that's over my head, then you're right. It's a famous Henry Ford, I think it was Henry Ford, quote, who said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you're right. The difference is, if you think you can, but you just need some assistance on how to get there. I'm hoping that's what I'm doing here. But if what you're trying to do is above the content or the level that I'm trying to keep this channel at, there are other channels that can delve deep into the more professional sense or more complicated corporate structuring of network design and architecture, and if that's what you're looking for, it's a free channel just like mine. Now, I do have memberships on my channel, which is different from subscriptions. Now, the memberships are $9.99 a month. It's all done through YouTube. YouTube bills all that. YouTube takes 30% of that right out of the, as soon as you pay it, YouTube's got 30% of that. The government wants another 30% of that, what's left. So I make about half of that. In return for that, I tell my members I'm going to make some members-only content that public cannot see. I invite my members to reach out to me personally if they have any questions or problems. And when they do reach out to me, I tell them, you need to tell me who you are in the email. You need to tell me you're a member, so I can verify it, because, you know, I have people online that try to trick me, right? Try to get something for nothing. And I will do my best to provide your tech support or answer your question as I do my customers in real life for my business. It's not something I can do just for everybody for free, because I don't have that kind of time. That's the only reason why. There's just not enough time in the day. So I have to be able to identify the people who are going above and beyond to support this channel, and I will go above and beyond to support them over what I do for a regular viewer. Not that I don't appreciate all of you, but there is only one of me and there's only so many hours in the day. And so without the people contributing to the channel, I would have far fewer videos. I thought I've certainly made this clear, but if you're new here, the content that you see mostly here on this channel is not sponsored in any way. There are some sponsors on occasion, RoboForm, Acronis. By the way, RoboForm and Acronis, we have deals going on right now. 60% off RoboForm if you're a new customer of RoboForm, which is a password manager. If you've not been using a password manager, once you understand how RoboForm works, you'll wonder how you ever lived without it. All of the sponsors that I'm talking about or that I take on, which is, I can count them on one hand, they are all backed up by me personally. They all have free trials. RoboForm is a free trial. Acronis has a free trial. Instant House Call has a free trial, so that you have peace of mind. VIP CDK deals, where there's really great discounts on Microsoft Windows, both 10 and 11, as well as Microsoft Office, not Office 365, but Office 2016, Office 2019, Office 2021. I understand that VIP CDK deals may offer an Office 365. I would steer you away from that, because the way they have to offer that, they have to create an account, and then they have to give you the account name and password. And one of the first instructions you're given is to ensure that your account is secure, since they're the ones who created it. Change your passwords. The ones who created it can no longer get in it. I'm not comfortable with that. I wouldn't set my customers up with that, so I'm not recommending it for any of you. But Office 2016, 2019, and Office 2021, those I do recommend, because those are your standard Office installs. And in Office 2019 and 2021, you will need your Microsoft account to activate them, which is entirely different from Office 365, where you're saving files potentially to your OneDrive and all associated to your Microsoft account. So if you want to buy Microsoft Office 365, that's a subscription only, and I would encourage you to do it under your own account. Okay. Office 2016, you can still activate without an account. But if you're signed into your Microsoft account when you're installing it, it's going to automatically tie it to your Microsoft account. This is not a bad thing. It's just not something I want, and I don't set my customers up with that. I like to keep everything locked in per machine and keep things as simple as possible. It's just how I choose to run my business. Office 2016 and 2019 support ends the same time Windows 10 support ends, which is October of 2025. I've been getting a lot of emails lately, a lot. Emails and messages where people go, for example, every time I go to Windows Update, I get this message that my computer is not compatible with Windows 11. What do I do? Well, first of all, there's nothing you need to do now. Whatever computer you're using now that's running Windows 10, you don't have to worry about Windows 11 until Windows 10 support ends October 14th of 2025. So this is marketing at its best, right? Microsoft is putting this in your face constantly that your machine needs to be upgraded or replaced because it's not Windows 11 compatible. Who cares? At this point, we have 2023 ahead of us, we have 2024 ahead of us, and we have 10 and a half months in 2025, just basically 2.5 months away from 2026 before you have to worry about Windows 11 seriously. My advice is, if you have a machine that says it's not Windows 11 compatible, but otherwise you're happy with your computer, leave Windows 10 on it until sometime in 2025. I would suggest the fall, no, not the fall, either the spring or the summer of 2025 is when you should look into getting a new computer or upgrading the one you have if it's possible. In most cases, it's not possible to upgrade it. If your machine's that old, it's going to be time for replacement. So if it's that old today that it's not Windows 11 compatible, then in 2.5 years, almost 3 years, it's definitely going to be due for replacement regardless. And it could die between now and then, where you're going to replace it for an entirely different reason. And what you replace it with, if what you're buying is basically 2017 or newer as far as manufacturing dates go, then you're Windows 11 compatible. So there's a lot of anxiety I'm seeing. What do I do? What do I do? You have almost 3 years. So to do anything about it right now, strictly based on the fact that you're getting these messages and it's making you feel like, you know, the end is near, the end is not near. And a lot can happen between now and October 14th of 2025. When 2025 is here and we're all still around, let's hope, I will be making videos more so talking about the transition from Windows 10 to Windows 11, or the migration. That's going to be a very common topic. I won't be the only content creator talking about it, because as that deadline of October 14th, 2025 approaches, the urgency of procrastinators putting it off is going to get greater and greater and greater. And for anybody continuing to run Windows 10 into 2026, well, I can't help you. There's nothing I can do to help you. There'd be very little anybody can do to help you. It's your choice if you want to do that. It's very, very unwise. It's like driving around without car insurance. You want to do that? It's on you. But I can't help you. The cost of helping you would pay for a new machine. And I'd rather see you take that money and treat yourself to a new machine than stubbornly continue to use an obsolete machine. But again, nearly 3 years before that deadline happens, so there's no reason to be concerned or have anxiety about that now. Dennis Kind just became a supporter to the channel. Hey, Dennis, welcome into the Tech Club. Thank you so much. Stan Ristov with £1.79 contributed. He says, I missed my contribution, but here's another one. I apologize for that, Stan. I'm still working my way through the chat room, and I don't have my viewer activity turned on the YouTube studio screen, so I'm going to change that now. But I'm still scrolling back up. I'm going backwards through the chat room. So I apologize, but there is your previous contribution, £1.79. And Stan Aristov says, hello, Kerry and chat from a snowy England. Right on. Well, thank you again, Stan. I'm sorry I didn't see that earlier. Vern says, I'm trying to figure out the best monitor resolution versus magnification and screen size so my tired old eyes can read the screen. Yeah, so again, there's something that you just have to figure out on your own, because I can't tell you what resolution or font size would be ideal specifically for you. And so once you know how to change the resolution and change the font size, then you can play around with it until you find what's comfortable. Ben Laird says, hello all from Scotland. Hey, Ben, welcome in. Patrick Manny, who's been a member for 2 months, says, Kerry, have a super Christmas. Is that 7 months? Patrick Manny's a member for 7 months, so pretty much since I started the memberships. Thank you, Patrick. Kerry, have a super Christmas and a great New Year. Tell you what, Patrick, I will if you will. Thank you. And Ricky B just became a member. Right on. Well, thank you, Ricky. Thanks for joining us here in the Tech Club. Right on. Farrell Sparky says, I have 2 servers that I need to be able to connect to with an RDP at any point of the day, at all times of the day. So it really helps. Oh, I guess I missed something before that. Oh, Remote Desktop Manager is a program that he says he can have easy access to all my machines. I need to have access to. There's a lot of remote access options out there. Remote PC, very cheap solution. UltraViewer is free, but not the most reliable piece of software. Of course, I mentioned Instant House Call. There's always Log Me In. Boy, there's more than I can shake a stick at. But yeah, if you have some personal experience with a remote piece of software that you like, both in its functionality and price, let us know in the chat room. This program, Farrell Sparky says, if anybody wants to use it, is called Tailscale. It's free to use. You can also use it to remote into another machine from anywhere as long as the operating system supports remote access. Interesting. Is it Tailscale or Tallscale? Talk about raising font sizes. Hold down the control button, roll the mouse wheel, and everything gets bigger. Tailscale, that's what it says. Okay. Never heard of it. There you go. There's a lot of options out there. Josh Kinder says hello. Hey, welcome in, Josh. Sam Van Teal? We'll just call him Sam. Sam says, I use Remote Desktop Manager for my servers, Datto RMM for users that pay for preventive automatic maintenance, and TeamViewer for everyone else. Yeah, there you go. I like TeamViewer software, but I don't like the TeamViewer companies and policies, so I've boycotted TeamViewer, and I refuse to use them anymore. The evergreen clauses in their contracts that make canceling with TeamViewer profoundly difficult, I feel are overpriced, and I find their customer service is more like customer policy enforcement. It doesn't feel like there's any service there. It feels more like policy enforcement. And at that price, I'm not going to be treated that way, and the service should not be difficult to cancel. Any of the sponsors I recommend, like RoboForm, which is a subscription, or Acronis, which is a subscription, those subscriptions are very easy to cancel at any time. They don't have like a 30-day window that you have to do it in, otherwise it auto-renews. That's nonsense. So what a shame they have such a great piece of software being run by such a terrible, in my opinion, terrible company. Michael Dane's giving away his 113th computer for a family of 3 children that lives in his community, and he's giving it as a Christmas gift. It's going to be an i5-10400. It's nice. MSI motherboard with 512 gig NVMe drive and NVIDIA 1080? Seriously? Wow. And 16 gigs of memory and a 27-inch monitor for their kids for Christmas. Wow, that's very generous of you, Michael. And Stan Ristoff with another contribution, £4.49. He says, here's another one, Carrie. Thanks, Stan. The Greek, who's been a member for 6 months or just became a member. Thank you, the Greek. John Williams wants to know, does a Core i7-9700 need an aftermarket cooler or an all-in-one liquid cooler? Well, does it need it? Well, here's the thing. The 9700 comes with a cooler. Intel would not provide you an inadequate cooler that would damage what you just bought, because imagine how this would impact their bottom line financially with all the warranty returns, not to mention the bad press. The reason people opt for a third-party cooler is that the stock cooler is for normal use. It's what you're going to get more or less on most of the computers that are sold in the retail stores. All the pre-builts are pretty much going to be stock coolers. That means that if you push them really hard, they will overheat and they get loud. So whether or not it needs it kind of depends on how you're using it. So if you're just browsing the web and checking email and things like that, and the fan is not getting loud, it's fine. I was installing a few computers for a business that came with stock coolers, and I was using the stock coolers because they're fine. But the business wasn't doing any maintenance. So about 3 years later, I'm over at the business, and the computers are on the floor, and they're super loud. But they've never complained. And I said, "Do you realize how loud these computers are?" And they said, "No." I said, "Well, I can't stand it. I mean, I'm just here for a couple hours, and it's driving me crazy. I'm recommending we change these fans out to some third-party, Scythe Mugen 5s, which is what I did." And, in my opinion, that was a bad judgment call on my part when I made the decision to stick with the stock cooler. I was doing it to save the client $65, $70 on the cooler. And I didn't consider the fact that this customer isn't going to blow the dust and dirt out of these computers. They're just not going to do it. So over time, those radiator fins, they get clogged up with dust. The fan has to move faster now to keep the CPU beneath it cool. And it wasn't a good choice for that client. So whether or not it needs it, the answer, no, it doesn't need it. That Intel has provided what it needs. Let's be clear. If your CPU, whether it's AMD or Intel, came in the box with a cooler, then that's the cooler it needs. However, if you are pushing that CPU, if the way you use your computer is you have 25 things open at the same time, if the noise is bothering you, or if your computer's shutting down because it's overheating, or slowing down because it's throttling, then you would need, not everybody, but you, under that usage circumstance, would need a different cooler. Now, whether or not that's an all-in-one liquid cooler or an air cooler depends on what is your case capable of holding. Some of the thinner cases won't even hold a Scythe Mugen 5 because it's too tall. The Corsair 200R case I use, the only all-in-one liquid cooler I can put in it is like a 120 or a 140 millimeter. That's it. And quite frankly, if you're going to do that, might as well just throw an air cooler on it. So the cable management you have to do with an all-in-one cooler is there's more cables to manage. You need the space to mount the radiator. And the all-in-one coolers have a lifespan of about 4 or 5 years on average. Some last less. We've had some die in 1 year. We've had others we installed 10 years ago that are presumably still running, but they don't last forever. They have a limited lifespan. So if you want something that you want to do once and be done with it, stick with an air cooler. If you've got a super high-end chip, we're talking a KS version of a chip, those run hot. The newer version, like the 13th gen, runs hotter typically than the 12th. The 12th will run hotter than the 11th because they're consuming more power, they're generating more heat, they need more aggressive cooling. So no, you don't need an enthusiast level cooler on a non-enthusiast level chip. So if it doesn't have a K on it, on the end of it for an Intel chip, the cooler it comes with is all it needs. If you find it too noisy, or if you're pushing that chip to its limit and you're running into some heat issues, I would recommend a Scythe Mugen 5. You'll see me use that constantly. Liquid coolers, I do not recommend because they just don't last very long and you will have to replace it likely at least once during your ownership of that computer if you're like most people and keep a computer for 8 years, 6 to 8 years. Ryan says, whatever happened to Windows 10 being the last operating system? I would have liked that. Well, there was one person that represented some department in Microsoft who made that comment. Nobody else at Microsoft ever said that, but they also didn't deny it. I said at the time, there's no way. There's no way you can just say Windows 10 is it, because it's going to sound old eventually. Regardless, it could be a whole new operating system. For example, let me put it this way. What if they said Windows 7 is the last operating system? That's it. And so then Windows Vista was still Windows Vista, but they called it Windows 7. And then after that, Windows 8, and they called it Windows 7. And then 8.1, and they still called it Windows 7. And then Windows 10, and they called it Windows 7. And now Windows 11, and they called it Windows 7. You're going to be like, it's still Windows 7. It's going to feel old, like Microsoft isn't keeping up. Once a certain amount of time passes, even though these are entirely different operating systems that derive a different name, if they hadn't renamed them, see, it's a psychological thing that's happening here. You have to rename it in order to revitalize the concept to the public that this is new, this is fresh. We can't say this is Windows 10, but it's new and it's fresh. Furthermore, it makes support a nightmare. Because if they did that with Windows 7, 8, Windows Vista, and Windows 10, and a customer calls and says, hi, I've got Windows 7, and I'm having this problem. The first thing I need to know is, do they have Windows 7, Windows 7? Or do they have the Windows Vista, Windows 7, or the Windows 8, Windows 7? Or do they have the Windows 10, Windows 7? Which Windows 7 do they have? And it makes support very difficult. As a result, this is what I said in my video way back then. I said, there's no way Microsoft can hold to that, because the public is going to be interpreting that as Microsoft has not evolved or not introducing or innovating anything. And of course, it was inevitable. But it was just one person at Microsoft that said it. It was never a company policy. It was never said by anybody else. And for whatever reason, there are certain things that kind of take on a life of their own. Like Bill Gates saying 640K ought to be enough for anybody. There's, as far as I know, no known instance of him ever saying that. And this happens in movies. If I say, Judy, 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 who comes to mind? Well, if you're old enough, you'll say Cary Grant. And I'll say, what movie did Cary Grant say, Judy, Judy, Judy? He never said that. If I said, badges, we don't need no stinking badges. That wasn't what was said in that movie. This happens all the time where people, for whatever reason, they take something, like in this case, one line in a movie, and they repeat it back in a way that it wasn't said, and it becomes this weird cultural phenomenon. But if you actually take the time and research it, you say, I want to go to the source. What's everybody referring to? You'll realize it's a twisted version of what was actually said. So this is, for whatever reason, something that happened when this one employee said Windows 10 is the last one. No one else at Microsoft said that. Nobody at Microsoft denied it. That's part of the problem. But it just took on this life of its own. Or Bill Gates saying 640K ought to be enough for anybody. Still looking for that source of where Bill Gates ever truly said that. From an official source, not from some guy on Reddit. Sarge Tech says, like, play it again, Sam. Bogey never said that. Also, beam me up, Scotty. Kirk never said that either. Yet normally he would say, what, beam me up? Or I thought there was an instance where he said it. But these are all examples, wonderful examples. Carlos Hernandez says, in Windows 10, I use Quick Assist to help out my family members remotely. So I think that's only available in Windows 10 Pro, if I remember correctly. Feral Sparky said, Carrie, I'm with you on air coolers. I had an all-in-one fail on me and nearly killed my PC when it started to get hot. I moved to a Noxua NHD 15 and it's been great. Sure. That's a giant cooler. You got to have a lot of room for that. And you got to have a big case. And it's expensive, but it's a good cooler. I agree. I've never had a failed cooler kill a PC in the last 10 years, maybe the last 15 years. Because the modern CPUs, they have thermal throttling and thermal protections. But back in the day, like the AMD Athlon series, I had many of those crack from overheating. When I say many, I mean like half a dozen. So these days, it's really not a concern. You can run a computer without a cooler. A modern computer, a modern Intel or AMD processor, they'll work without a cooler until they overheat and shut down, but it won't permanently damage the chip. If you do it a lot, you might reduce the overall life of the chip. So instead of the chip having a 70-year lifespan, maybe it'll only have a 25-year lifespan, but you're likely not going to own it for more than 10 years anyway. And if you own it after 15 years, what are you doing? Starting a museum? Daco says, my PC helps to keep my room warm this time of year. Yeah. John Doe says, at my age, I can barely hear the doorbell or telephone ring. Fan noise, I'd be happy to hear. This is true. I've run into customers who openly tell me, they go, my hearing is not that good, so I didn't notice the fan was loud. But quite often their spouse says, I'm hearing it and it's driving me crazy, so please fix it. Even though he can't hear it, I'm suffering. Yep, I've had that conversation more than once. Ryan says, in Canada, we don't even need computer coolers. We just stick them outside for a while. Problem solved. Right? Of course, he's joking. It's a joke. Barry Russ with a $5 Super Chat contribution says, howdy, Carrie, and blessings to all in chat. Hey, thank you, Barry. Howdy to you, too. Mr. Nazgul wants to know, Carrie, can you suggest a power supply for 3000 graphics card series with DDR5 motherboard and RAM? Suggest a power supply. 750 watts or above. I wouldn't go anything above 1,000. So if you're at 750, 800, 850, that's where I would be. If it were me, that's what I would be looking for. The Greek says he's been a member for 6 months from day one. Well, thank you. That means a lot to me. I appreciate it. George Armstrong in the chat wants to know if anybody saw the article at bleepingcomputer.com about Microsoft Edge and Chrome. They will soon not support Windows 7 and Windows 8.1. Well, it's about time. Chrome is also, so Chrome is really known for just like using up your RAM. It's a memory hog. And Chrome is introducing some features that are coming soon that are going to like disable or shut down or pause, I don't know the right word. Like if you have a bunch of tabs open and you haven't touched one of these tabs for a certain amount of time, the tab will still be there, but it kind of goes to sleep so it's not consuming resources, and it'll wake back up when you click on it. And so I guess that is releasing some memory in use. And there's supposed to be some other features. There was an article over at PCWorld.com, I think. Was that where I saw it? Well, it's about time, because Chrome is a memory hog and Google's finally starting to address that. And it can also drain the battery on your portable device rather quickly. And so these two enhancements are what's coming up in updates to Chrome very soon. Not sure when, just soon. just looking for other questions here in the chat. Love the interactions you guys have with each other, users helping users. I love that. I love to see it. Like I say, if you're asking a question directed to me in the chat, still watch the chat for other chat participants offering you up answers. We have very knowledgeable viewers on this channel. Taco says, what is the best browser? I always use Chrome. I always use Chrome too. What's best is entirely up to you to decide. Nobody can tell you what's best. As a YouTube content creator, Chrome just works better with YouTube. Gee, I wonder why. Maybe because Google owns both of them? So there's no reason for me to go to any other browser. Now, Microsoft Edge is now Chromium based anyway, so they're almost imperceptible as far as how they work and how they look. However, my personal preference is and has been Chrome for a very, very long time. I know there's Firefox users out there in Brave, Safari. Is there still Safari? I know Samsung has their own browser on the phone. And on my phone, I'll use that browser. I don't necessarily need Chrome on my phone. I have it, but I haven't changed it to a default or anything like that. Patrick says, my ISP offers Norton as part of my subscription. Is that a good thing? Well, I wouldn't use it. If my ISP paid me to use it, I wouldn't use it. If you have Windows 10, you have built-in antivirus already, and it's really good. When it comes to anti-malware, I use a paid product called Malwarebytes, or rather, I use the paid version. It's like $30 a year. You can often find it on sale at like Newegg or Amazon. They'll put it on sale quite a lot. Those are the only two PC security software that I use. The Windows built-in firewall is just fine as long as you're behind a router. Windows Defender, again, you can go to antivirus test sites. It's rated very well, and it's free, and it's with Windows. Norton, McAfee, those two are like the big 800-pound gorillas in the room. In a corporate or enterprise where you've got to deploy updates to 1,000 machines, and you don't want to have to visit each machine. You can just do it from an administrator console. Those products shine. For home users, you know, back in the 90s when Peter Norton's, I think he started in the 90s or the 80s, he had a really great product, but it was sold off. I think it's been sold a couple of times. Who owns them now? Is it Intel owns? I can't remember. Maybe Intel owns McAfee. Either one of those giant antivirus products I don't recommend unless you're in a corporate environment. ISPs used to give away antivirus for free because people weren't putting antivirus on their machines, and it was infiltrating the entire network with virus bots, essentially. Viruses are, in effect, a type of bot. And they needed to do something about it. At the end of the day, Norton and McAfee want you to upgrade their free versions. They're not being kind. They're simply wanting you to say, hey, this is the free limited version, but you could get so much more if you just pay us some money. That's why they do that. So I wouldn't use them, me personally. Again, I use Windows Defender combined with a paid version of Malwarebytes. That's all I use. That's all I use for my clients. And it's been a long time since I've had a client or myself have to deal with a virus. It's worked very, very well for me and my customers. I can't tell you what will work well for you. Jason Urbank says, they're saying anti-malware is the same as antivirus. From what I looked up over the years, some companies want these words to be different when they mean the same thing. I disagree. I'm not sure where you're getting the information, but I disagree with it. Viruses and malware, if you asked me to define them, malware is any malicious software, which includes viruses, but viruses are not necessarily malicious, fall under the context of malicious software, in the sense that potentially unwanted programs, PUPs or PUPs, are typically not detected by antivirus. Anti-malware is any type of software that could be considered malicious and may not self-propagate. A virus always self-propagates. That's a key component that all viruses have. To be labeled as a virus, it has to self-propagate. Malware doesn't necessarily self-propagate. It might be something you got from visiting a site, and now that you've got it, it doesn't necessarily try to propagate itself out over your network or to anybody you're connected to. But a virus will. XRod666 with a $5 contribution says, hey, Kerry, if I make a purchase using a payment plan on Amazon using your link, do you still get a kickback? I think so. I should. Not quite sure how that works. Jasmine in the chat says, MCSoft's emergency kit is also free and works great. Well, yes, it works great after you've been infected, but it doesn't help you to prevent getting infected. Just like Malwarebytes, if you have the free version, it's very helpful to remove an infection, but it's not helpful at all to prevent the infection to begin with. That's why I suggest the paid version of Malwarebytes, because it'll alert you when it's blocking something, and that's educating you that whatever you just did, don't do that. Versus being infected, you may not understand how you got infected. And now using MCSoft's emergency kit or the free version of pretty much like Malwarebytes or other antivirus options out there is all about being reactive after it's happened. I prefer to be proactive so that it prevents it from happening or reduces the odds of it from happening to begin with. Bikeman wants to know, is it okay to run my EVGA G3 650 watt power supply with eco mode off? The filter is cleaned every month due to the amount of dust that seems to happen here. Yeah, well, that's why eco mode can be turned on and off. There's a switch in the back of the power supply, so each user can decide for themselves whether they want eco mode on, where the fan only turns when the power supply reaches a certain temperature to reduce the dust and noise that the system's creating, or turn eco mode off, where the fan runs all the time like an old school power supply. It's a personal preference. Decide for yourself what works best for you. Hiller Bishop says, I see you still have that mini PC on the desk. It must be taking it for a cross-country drive. No, I've got, this has come in handy. I'm so glad B-Link sent that to me, the SEI 12 here, because I've been using it in demonstrations. It's easier than lifting a big tower up here. Also, B-Link just sent me their new gaming portable, it's a little computer like this. Of course, the games are only going to be like, 1080 in low settings, but, CSGO and, other games that people play will play on it using the RDNA graphics from AMD. So it's AMD based. And I should get that here in the next week or so, and I'll do an overview and review of it. But in the meantime, this is really coming handy for me to use as demonstration. Anytime I want to go to a website, or that I want to, if I have a guest on, we want to demonstrate the product like RoboForm or Acronis, this is very, very handy to have, because it's basically a clean spare computer that we can do anything to, and then I can just reset it between guests so it always stays pristine, and we can have a very consistent experience with installing products and not worrying about some other machine that's in use that's had, I don't know, some damage to the registry or corruption that causes an unexpected experience on a live video. Not that that's common, but I don't want it to happen at all. So yeah, I've kept it on the desk because I keep using it. I didn't know I was going to find it this handy, this helpful. Vern wants to know, how does Acronis work with Defender and Malwarebytes? It's fine. It works just fine. If you don't want to use the Acronis antivirus, you can turn it off, or simply when you're installing Acronis, as I showed in the video with Begowden just last week, we did a video. You'll see me install it, and when I installed it, I turned that built-in antivirus that Acronis has off. I did ask Begowden about it, and Begowden suggests that that is the only antivirus you need. As long as you have the antivirus with the Acronis, you no longer need Windows Defender or Malwarebytes. You can pick what you want. I have a paid version of Malwarebytes along with Windows Defender and Acronis, and I have disabled the antivirus so that it's not running. Begowden says that, you know, when you run two antiviruses, whether it's Acronis or Norton or whatever it is, when you run two antivirus products, they'll conflict with each other. An antivirus and an anti-malware product, however, do not conflict with each other. Once again, another difference between those two. Now, what you decide to do is entirely up to you, of course, but just for me to explain the difference so that it can help you make the right choice that fits your needs or your expectations. Hillard Bishop says, Carrie, I've been keeping an eye on that little mini PC. I'm considering one for a streaming device for one of my TVs. Oh, it would work really well for that. The one they just sent me has 4 HDMI outputs on the back of it. It's pretty cool. But yeah, as an HT PC, it's quiet, it's out of the way. It'd be a great usage for that. Absolutely. Peter says that mini PC is certainly very quiet, I suppose. It is quiet, although it's not on right now. We're not using this right now. But when it is on, it doesn't. It makes very little noise at all. Bernard C. says that mini PC is so cool, I'd like to use one for streaming too. Yeah, they're very ideal for that purpose. I wanted to remind people that Netgear Nighthawk router, the RAX 120, I was talking about routers last week. I thought that was going to sell out. They've got this $230 router that's been returned for $130. And they have, like, as of this morning, they still had 16 of them available here in the US at Amazon.com. Of all the routers that I have experimented with these last few weeks, I find myself liking the one I had even better. Like, I was happy with it, but I thought, hey, let's do Wi-Fi 6E. Let's see how much better these newer versions of the routers are. And for me personally, they're not better at all. They're not better because I'm not using 2.5 gig, and they're all like 1.8 gigahertz CPUs, whereas this RAX 120 is a 2.2 gigahertz CPU, quad core. And all the newer routers have a lesser processor in them, even though they're newer and cost 2 to 3 times more money. But again, I don't need a 10 gigabit port. I don't need 2.5 gig. Does anybody here use 2.5 gig networking? I don't know anybody who uses it. I'm not even sure how I would use it, because I don't have any. Even if this computer had 2.5 gig, I'd need a 2.5 gig switch. I would need, I guess, a 2.5 gig network attached storage, which I'm not aware of any from Synology. I'm not quite sure how that would work. I'm not even sure the hard drive could keep up anyway. So at least a mechanical drive and a NAS. So for me, these newer routers are a complete waste of money. I have the Amazon page up because I want to show you this. I mean, these should have sold out. I'm blown away that you guys, apparently most of you have not purchased it. And maybe you don't need it, but oh my gosh, this thing is a bargain, just an absolute bargain. Let me go over here to my screen share. Give me just a minute. Okay. So I just went into Amazon and I typed in RAX 120. So let's just do that again. And the very first thing it brings up is a sponsored link from Netgear, and it shows this router new is $232. Now, if you look in my shopping cart, $130 for the same exact thing because somebody returned it to Amazon. So it may not be in the original box. It may not have what they call bonus materials, which is like all the documentation and paperwork, which, let's face it, who needs that? You go online and get the PDF file anyway. It will come with a power supply. It will come with an Ethernet cord and the unit itself. The original box, if it's included, may not have all the packing material, or the box may be damaged. They may say the unit has shows signs of like a scratch or something bigger than 1 inch. I don't know. I've never seen anything scratched ever from the items I bought used from Amazon. And of course, you have, as long as you're buying it from Amazon warehouse, you have a very generous return period. Like currently, I think you have until the end of January to return it. So if we look right under here, it says new and used from $130.40, and I click on that. That's where I found it. It says acceptable condition. I've unboxed many returned items that I've purchased from Amazon, specifically routers. All of the routers I've demonstrated last week were all returned, and I bought them because they were significantly cheaper, and they were all like new, except like the packaging was obviously used, or the power supply had a rubber band holding the cord together, which manufacturers don't ship that way. Other than that, I mean, we throw the boxes out anyway, don't we? So who cares if the box is damaged? For $130 for a Wi-Fi 6 router, it has a 2.2 gigahertz quad-core CPU in it. So when I plug an external USB drive to the back of the router, I use that instead of a NAS to share files with my entire network. And it's moving the data at 80 megabytes per second over my wireless network. On my wired network, I move data to my Synology at 129 megabytes per second. So it's just slightly slower. But on all the other routers I've tested from the new version of this router, let me show you the new version, because they look identical, but the prices are very different. So if that's normally $232, its current version is now $458. $458. And it's tri-band wireless, so we've got 6 gigahertz band, but I don't have anything that needs 6 gigahertz or can use 6 gigahertz. I don't have anything that's Wi-Fi 6E except for my phone, and even that, why would I need it? I'm not using my phone where it's that demanding on the bandwidth. So that's $458. And when I bought this one to test it, I went down here and I looked for new and used. And then I looked for what's coming from Amazon Warehouse. This is not coming from Amazon Warehouse. However, it does have good reviews, and a lot of them from this seller. But I would look here from Amazon Warehouse. I would pay the extra 27 cents so I had peace of mind to get it from Amazon Warehouse. So 311 versus 458. That's why I bought it, right? It was a great savings. And that's always going to change as people return things and people buy things. So inventory is constantly in flux. So if you're not seeing something there today, check it out tomorrow. Check it out daily. Also, I saw Synology NAS, that's normally $190. They had one returned for $139. It's a $50 savings. I was thinking to myself, maybe I should buy that. And as I was thinking about it, I looked again and it was gone. Somebody else bought it. So it's not just routers, but other items where you can get some screaming deals and have peace of mind as long as it's coming from Amazon Warehouse, that you can always return it. I just can't believe that you guys haven't bought out these, wrong screen there, Carrie, that you guys haven't bought out these $130 returned routers. Because in many cases, it's more powerful. Processing-wise, the 80 megabytes per second I'm getting on the file transfer to the attached USB drive that I plug into the back of this router is only 40 to 45 megabytes per second on its replacement. You know, the new one I just showed you, that's 458. The data's moving at half the speed over to the USB drive. And the same with that expensive TP-Link router that I have. That router not only runs hot, in my opinion, not hot to the point where it's creating a problem, but hotter than what I'm accustomed to, so I'm uncomfortable with it. And TP-Link's interface is it looks a bit clunky to me. So I much prefer the interface on Netgear and ASUS routers. I also failed to mention Linksys and Belkin when I was talking about other manufacturers. I've been really turned off by their limited interfaces and performance of those units. I haven't looked at them in a few years. Maybe it's gotten better, but I'm sticking, for me personally, to Netgear, TP-Link, and ASUS when I'm thinking about buying a router. And this router is an insane deal at $130. That's crazy, absolutely crazy deal, because it is, in my opinion, a better router. It's got a faster processor, and I don't need the 10 gigabit port. I don't need a 2.5 gig, although I think it might have a 2.5 gig port on it. I wouldn't use it. It has two USB 3.0 ports, so you can plug two USB drives in it. You can plug a printer in there, share the printer over your network. Even if it's not a wireless printer, you make it one just by plugging it into the back of the router. And that 2.2 gigahertz CPU is incredible. Yeah, it does have 2.5 there. So it's not an old, obsolete router. It is a couple of years old in design, but for most of you out there, what you're going to be connecting to it is probably even older than that. A lot of your IoT, like your Internet of Things, your doorbell, your garage door opener, maybe you have an appliance or security cameras, maybe you have a nanny cam or a baby monitor, maybe you have your phones, your tablets. This is going to handle all that Wi-Fi that you have now and going forward into the future with 12 streams. It's just a really good deal. How is this not sold out? How is it that they still have 16 of these? That's a lot of returns. Sometimes it'll tell you how many are left. You'll see it covers up to 3,500 square feet. So for most people, it's all you need. If you're using Wi-Fi extenders now, you won't need them anymore if you have a router like this. Just unplug them, stick them in a drawer somewhere. It's very unlikely you would need to add on to this router for further Wi-Fi coverage. It's possible, highly unlikely though. And that is a steal. I'm telling you, $130. If I was more of a businessman, I'd buy them all and just turn around and sell them for $200 on eBay. Or $180, be a $50 profit. It'd still be $50 cheaper than new. Oh, what a good deal. All right. You guys keep tempting me by leaving them in stock, and I might just have to buy them all. Where'd my camera go? There I am. All right. Frankie McAvoy says, "Hey, Carrie, happy Christmas from Frankie in Waterford City in Southern Ireland." Sláinte, Frankie. Happy holidays to you, my friend. Sarge Tech says this ASUS AC1200 was brand new in the box and never used. Oh, I guess you bought one of those off of Amazon, and when you got it, it was like a brand new product. That might be a renewed product. So Amazon sells the returns, and then they have sellers that refurbish or renew, is what it's called, where it is new in a box. It's just been refurbished. They don't actually open them up and do any soldering or repair. They just ensure that they work, power supply works, and typically those will have the bonus material like documentation and whatnot. And then sometimes you're buying from Amazon warehouse and in fact it looks like new because somebody who bought it may never even have opened it. There could be a number of reasons why people return things. They ordered it by mistake, they ordered the wrong version, their spouse found out they spent a lot of money that they got upset about. You're sending that back. And then that's the benefit to the next buyer. So I'm just looking through the chat and see if I can answer any questions you guys have. I have a link to that router in my video notes below this video. If you use my link, rather than searching for it in Amazon on your own and purchasing it, it's going to cost you the same amount of money either way, but if you use my link that takes you directly there, I make a small commission on your purchase along with anything else you buy at Amazon as a result of my link taking you there. But the minute you close your browser or open a new tab or a different browser and go to Amazon without using my link, then I don't make any commission on what you buy. Prices are still the same, the shipping's still the same, and I don't know who's doing the buying. I can only see what was sold, so I know how much commission I've earned. Some devices or product have higher commission, some have zero commission. It just depends what it is. But it's a nice anonymous way to support this channel. If I have my choice, just so I'm clear, and I am not paid for saying what I'm about to say. I'm not paid for saying anything, quite frankly. I might get paid to not say something, to not talk at all. But having gone through all these routers that I've gone through lately, having the pick of any one I want the one I had back, which is the one I just showed you for $130. That's just crazy to me. That's why I'm like, holy cow, how is it that cheap? I paid over $400 for it a couple of years ago as the Studio B router. I've been trying to make it better. There's nothing wrong with it. I've got no complaints about it whatsoever. It meets and exceeds all of my needs. But I thought, well, this is the new version of that router. It must be better, right? It's actually worse. It's a 1.8 gigahertz processor instead of a 2.2. And I'm not seeing any brand new 6E Wi-Fi routers with USB ports on them that have a 2.2 or greater processor. And that's likely why my transfer speeds to my USB drive are so slow on these newer 6E routers universally. That Asus fancy router doesn't even have a USB port on it. Ubiquity's Alien router, no USB port on it. So the benefit is I can get a little 5 terabyte external USB drive, laptop style, in an enclosure for like $100, $120, plug it into the back of this router or any router that has a USB port. And I don't have to buy a NAS. To buy the NAS, you're looking around $200, and then I got to buy 2 hard drives for a 2-drive NAS. And if those are going to be, let's say, 16 terabytes each, I'm looking at a total expenditure of somewhere around $900 when what I've got is working perfectly. I'm not going to buy a couple of 5 terabyte drives and throw it in NAS. I'm not going to waste my time. I've already got a 5 terabyte drive through USB. So if I'm going to go with a NAS, I'm going to put drives in it that's going to last me a long time. I did see they're selling renewed hard drives. Not quite sure that's a good idea. They have less warranty. I think they're only a 90-day warranty, and there's no telling how much wear and tear has been put on them. So I would not buy those as returned or renewed product. It's up to you if you want to do that, but I need that. If I'm spending that kind of money, I want that original warranty. Marsman50 says, Carrie, could you help me out on your thoughts on a point-to-point transmitter receiver to send my wireless signal about 1,000 feet? I have a video on these wireless bridges. So a wireless bridge is a transmitter and a receiver. They're sold together, and they're like two ends of a cable, but the cable's invisible. Think of it like a network cable, but the ends of the network cable are wireless. So you basically take one of these units and plug it into your router, and it's got a little adapter to provide power over Ethernet, and hang it on the wall if you want. Put it outside. It's weatherproof, but you don't have to have it in line of sight. These can transmit somewhere around 1 to 4 miles, depending on how many obstacles, whether it's line of sight. So going 1,000 feet is nothing. So you take one end, you run it to your router that you have now. You physically plug it in. You take the other end, that's the other end of the invisible cable, you put it where you want your Wi-Fi signal to be, and then I would buy another router, and I would plug it into that other router and then broadcast it in Wi-Fi at your destination. So you'll have a big Wi-Fi signal over here, and then 1,000 feet away you have another big Wi-Fi signal over there. Now you don't have to plug it into another router. You could just take the cable and plug it directly into a computer, but most people want that Wi-Fi. They want to be able to attach multiple devices, not just one, and they want to be able to attach devices, in many cases, both wired and wireless, just like they can at the source. So that's all you have to do. It's that simple. When you buy a wireless bridge, it's going to come with 2 units. They broadcast only to each other on a Wi-Fi signal that is different from your Wi-Fi. You will not see it on your SSIDs. It's proprietary for them to communicate solely with each other on their own channel. Oftentimes there's a little switch at the bottom of the bridge to change the channel, in case there's interference or noise, to improve your performance of your Wi-Fi bridge, or your wireless bridge rather. But just think of it as a cable, and these 2 units are the virtual cable. They're a wireless cable. It's not even virtual. It's basically a wireless cable. They do not have to be line of sight. Line of sight only improves the distance, and the distance on these easily does 1,000 feet without a problem. It's just that easy. They're plug and play. You don't have to log into them or configure them. On the bottom, you can set it into receiver mode or sender mode. They're already pre-configured out of the box. It doesn't really matter which one you place. And yeah, just plug it in the back of your router as you would a computer, and the other end preferably into another router at the location that you're trying to get the signal to. That easy. They start around $100 for basic ones. They get the job done at 100 megabits. You want to go gigabit, you can get cheap ones for a little over 100. I've got a couple reviews on them here on this channel if you want to check them out. Wayne says, hey, Carrie, I finally caught a live stream. I'm so excited. Hello from the Brew City, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Glad you caught us and joined us, Wayne. Welcome in. The Greek says 4 miles. Wow. Yeah, you can get them that can go extreme distances. I think the one I have does 1.8 kilometers? Let me see if I can pull it up on my Amazon page. The one I'm using here. Let me go back to my screen share. It's a company called Nick Giga. And they make a lot of networking equipment that's sort of bargain basement compared to the bigger manufacturers. They're much cheaper. And I guess I got to be more specific, so we'll put bridge. Here we go. So this one's 100 megabits, but this isn't. This is a sponsored thing here from somebody else. Where did it go? Kind of looks like that one. You see they're sold in pairs. These two 1 gigabit per second. There is a coupon here, 5% off. Of course, I got to log in to utilize that, so never mind. But I think you could probably find one cheaper than this and check out the reviews. It's really very simple to use. And when you search for them on Amazon, there's a lot to choose from. Ingenious makes them. Better known manufacturers make them, but I haven't had any problem either with the cheap one that I had, which was only 100 megabit. The only reason I upgraded it was to go, the one I've got's a 900 megabit, close enough. If you just need 100 megabit, they're very inexpensive, under $100. And they can get very expensive, as you see Ubiquity's got one here that's intended for like corporate buildings. That's, $566. I think this is the one I have, 900 megabits per second. It's 5.8 gig is the transmission of how they talk to each other. I think that's the one I have. It was just over $100. There's a $10 coupon. It's going to take $10 off. So it'll be $110. It's not made by Nick Giga. This one's a different company, but it's essentially, they're all kind of the same. And do we have any reviews? I don't see any reviews. They're always sold in a 2-pack. You have to use both of them. You can't just use one. You must use them both. And that's effectively what it looks like. They're already paired out of the box, so you don't have to do anything other than plug them in. Ryan wants to know if there's a 2-factor authentication that can be used without giving a phone number if you don't want to give out your phone number. Sometimes 2-factor authentication is they'll kick you an email or they'll send you a text. There's also there's a passwordless type of authentication that requires you have your phone with you and you have an app on the phone. And as long as your phone is with you, it knows you're you and it signs you in without a password. So we're becoming more and more phone dependent. But the 2FA is typically offered by the site. It's not typically something you bring. It's something they offer. So if they offer it, then it's the kind that they offer is what your choices are. Corbin wants to know, when does a home user need a router? My internet is DSL, 2.7 megabits download. So you already have a router. Your DSL modem is both a modem and a router. Otherwise, you'd only get internet on one computer. You need that router to share your internet to multiple computers. You need the router to act as a firewall to do what's called network address translation, or you'd probably already be hacked without it, without you ever doing anything other than turning the computer on. That's all you have to do to get hacked without a router these days. Now, the third thing a router lets you do is to share files and folders in your own home network as well as printers. So the router performs those 3 functions, and all DSL modems are also routers by default. Just so you know, you already have a router. Many cable modems are now also routers. That's becoming more and more the norm. So you can still buy another router if your router is either not fast enough or it doesn't give you the coverage you need. Perhaps you walk into the kitchen and your signal is gone. You would want another router, a better router. That would be the best choice in my opinion versus buying a Wi-Fi extender, which I think is a terrible solution. So the more advanced routers are going to do a lot for you if you need those things. Faster connections, more connections, better range. The Greek wants to know if they can buy Malwarebytes through me. No, I have no affiliation with Malwarebytes at this time, nor have I ever. Maybe next year we can work on something. I'd like to be able to offer it, but I've been having a difficult time getting through to their marketing folks to work with me. They want to, by default, drive you over to Commission Junction and sign up for the generic terms that anybody can go and do. I'm not interested in that. I want them to acknowledge we have a special, valuable audience here that's not elsewhere, and for them to show that appreciation by offering a discount specifically for my viewers. I can't do that through Commission Junction. I have to talk to somebody. I don't go through Commission Junction for any sponsorship. So at this time, the answer to the question is no. Christopher Harris says, did you get my super chat? Oh, that's a good question. Let's see. Nicholas Menard contributed 10 Canadian dollars and says, hey, Carrie, it's good to see you. I reverted back to Windows 10 since I feel like Windows 11 has still too many missing features and bugs that Windows 10 doesn't have. Glad you seem well. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you, Nicholas. Appreciate the feedback and your experience, sharing your experience about Windows 11. There's Christopher Harris with a $5 super chat. He says, buying at launch, the 7000 series releases tomorrow on the 13th. Does that mean tonight at midnight I should be checking the websites? I don't know. Because midnight your time and midnight at any specific site is going to be different, right? Because Newegg is in California. I'm not sure what time zone Amazon's based on. And of course, if you're in New York or you're buying from B&H Photo, places like that, I don't have the answer, but if anybody in the chat knows, please put it in the chat. Daniel Navarro joins us in the chat and says hello. Still looking through the chat for any other questions, otherwise we'll wrap up today's video. I hope you guys will, if you're interested, check out the NetworkChuck channel. Because if you're not quite sure what the difference still is between an amateur and a professional, I think you're going to get it over there. I think you're going to see it's a whole nother ball game, completely different game. Ricky B says, Carrie, thanks for the link. I couldn't find the $130 one. I bought one. So remember how I showed that, right? If you're in the USA, so if you're in another country, then obviously it's not going to be the same Amazon that you're going to. But when I went to Amazon, and again, I'll bring it back up over here on the screen, just to go through this, my link should have taken you there directly. Let's go through it again. So I go to the Amazon search here. I scroll back up, right up here, and I'll type in RAX120, not an O, but a 0, push enter, and the very first thing Amazon comes back with is the one we want. We click on that very first one. It shows it's $232. That's brand new. If we scroll down to the right side, scroll down, below this box, you'll see a shaded box. Go a little bit lower, and it says new and used. There are 89 offers of new and used from other sellers and Amazon Warehouse combined. Click once on that, and you'll get this little thing that opens off to the side, and it should be sorted by price, and you'll see the first one here, used, acceptable, $130. Now, you'll see it's not going to arrive for like 2 weeks. It's not an Amazon Prime, unfortunately, so you will have to be patient. If you want it faster, look for one that supports Amazon Prime, but it's likely going to cost you more. And as I scroll down, you see the prices will eventually go over, in most cases, they go over what a new one costs. Like this seller wants $239, $242. We keep going, the prices keep going up well beyond what the price of a new one costs, because that's what third-party sellers, if it's going to happen that way, it's always a third-party seller that does that. It's not Amazon doing that. And even though there's just one link here to buy this used one, it does show there are 16 of them once you add it to the cart, or there was anyway. So just a reminder there. I think you're going to be real happy with the router. I know I am. That's my choice for a router. I'm still going to put other routers in place so I can test them and live with them for a week or two. So I'm still testing that TP-Link. I'm about done with it. I'm going to put that ROG Asus gaming router in next and see how that performs. And once I make my way through them, I'm likely, unless things change, putting that router I just showed you, the one I've had the last couple of years, it's going right back where it was. I miss my 80 megabits per second, or 80 megabytes rather, per second wireless transfer speeds of my files to the attached storage, the USB attached storage. And it's way cheaper than me buying a Synology NAS and putting hard drives in it. Way cheaper. XRod666 says, I watch NetworkChuck. I find it interesting. I really enjoy his knowledge, his passion, his enthusiasm. Yeah, it's a great channel. There's a reason why he has 2.5 million subscribers. Taco said, I had 2 routers on the go together once, and it caused so many problems to me, I recommend only having 1 router. Well, Taco, you just didn't have them configured correctly. If you don't know how to configure the routers, well, you likely may have problems. Now, the newer routers are much better at being smart enough to detect when you're plugging them into another router. Back in the olden days, 10 plus years ago, yeah, it can cause problems. Modern routers today, not likely going to have a problem. However, simply using the routers correctly, configuring them properly, one with DHCP, one without, one you're using the WAN port, the other one you're using as an access point or a bridge. It's all configurable in modern routers, and that is no longer a reason not to use 2 routers. However, it depends on what your reason was to be using the 2 routers to begin with. Today's modern routers have amazing range. So if you were using it to get better range, which is often why people did that, then it's important they were configured together properly back in the day. Now you can do mesh as an option in the router so that you don't have to switch networks with your phone. It all happens automatically. The network name stays the same. It's all seamless as you walk from one building to the next building, or from one floor of the house to another floor of the house. It just switches without you even, it just appears you're connected to just one router. It's really cool how mesh networks work. And of course, configuring it as an access point and disabling DHCP. That was the old way. We used to have to make 2 routers work together. These days, they're pretty intelligent and can sense when they're plugged into another router and self-configure. So that's how things have evolved and changed. So if you had a bad experience from doing that 10 plus years ago, or the routers you were using were over 10 years old, it no longer applies today. That you wouldn't have that same experience. Oystein says the Amazon warehouse offers don't seem to show up for Europeans. Yeah, again, I don't know how Amazon does it in other countries, so and I wouldn't expect the warehouse offers here would be shipping outside of the US. That would defeat the purpose of the discount. because the shipping would cost as much as the product. But I appreciate the feedback and letting me know. Dogboy says, I replaced my hard drive with a solid state drive, and now it takes about 1.5 minutes to restart. Before the restart took seconds. Sounds like you don't have something configured correctly. CCTV user says, Amazon offers will only show if there is actual used stock. This is true, yes. If they have nothing to offer, there won't be any offers. I don't know why that needs to be said, but okay. XRod666 says, I tried NetworkChuck's branded coffee and he likes it. He's got like 4 different coffees, so depends which one you try. I'm not a coffee drinker, so that's very much a theme of his channel, like Gatorade or Coca-Cola is to mine. He's all about the coffee. Ricky B said, your link did work and took me directly to that warehouse offer. When I did a search, all I could find was the $151. I didn't scroll down far enough. The one I bought was Prime and it'll arrive on December 12th. Yeah, you'll get it faster. That's fine. You know, it's like if I ordered one, I wouldn't get it till Wednesday. Not this Wednesday, the one after that. But I'd be willing to wait for that significant savings, $100 off. Mortant says hello in the chat. Welcome in, Mortant. Oystein says, if I change my IP address to a United States address, then he can see the $130 offer. Yeah, good luck getting him to ship it to you. I'm sure the shipping will cost quite a lot of money and take forever. Ron Barnish says, I see Amazon has the $200R Corsair case for $180 from Amazon UK. Yeah, I would just buy the 200R direct from Corsair. In all likelihood, the Amazon UK is likely a third-party seller that's marked it up, although there are shipping and import fees, so it's obviously going to cost more money. Then you got to turn around and pay the shipping and import fee. Well, I don't think we have to pay any import fees, but you will have to pay for the shipping. So it went from the US to the UK, and then if you buy it from the UK, it'll have to come back to the US. It's a very expensive way to buy product. But that's not coming directly from Corsair. The Corsair doesn't sell the case for $180. We've already been through this, Ron. We already went through this. All right, I think that's gonna wrap it up. Just looking to see if there's any final questions here. MIB Pro 3030 wants to know, are current mobile devices smart enough to switch from one mesh point to the next while moving around a large area? It's not so much on the mobile device, it's on the router. The mobile device is connecting the same, so it doesn't matter if you have an older Wi-Fi device, be it a phone or some other older tablet, let's just say. Those devices, they just simply connect to the available signal. The signal itself, switching automatically, is all done through the routers. Fred Adcock says he re-upped his Acronis. Yeah, I'm glad you took advantage of the discount from Acronis, which is 40% off. Even if you're a current Acronis subscriber, you can add to your subscription at that discounted price by simply using the coupon code CarrieHolzman2022 at checkout. That code is valid until the end of this year. And so December 31st, 2022 will be the last day you can use it. Okay. Oh, wait, no, I see another question. Would a Wi-Fi router interfere with the neighbor's Wi-Fi router if operating on the same channel? Yes, by interfering it means your signal, your data transmission rate, is still going to work, but it's not going to work as well. Same with them. So it may be that you're not even aware that there's interference because it's working, but it just might work slower. I would definitely try to find a channel that nobody else is using in your area for better performance. Because interference, what interference does, again, to be clear, it's going to make your signal quality degraded. It's not like it's not going to work. It's just not going to work as well. And it's very easy to change the channel on a router. Many modern routers have apps you can download on your phone. Netgear, Nighthawk, TP-Link, and Asus, they all have apps. Like if you were to buy this $130 router, buy the app. And with the app, you can do some really fun, crazy stuff. I can take a minute and show you. I've got the TP-Link app on my phone, and let me show you how and why you would want it. First and foremost, TP-Link offers two apps. One's called the Wi-Fi Toolkit. So if I bring up the Wi-Fi Toolkit, I'll try and bring this over to the camera. We have some options here, like settings. No, that's not what I want. Detect camera, test speed, Wi-Fi diagnostics. Click on Wi-Fi diagnostics. Boy, it seems like that's having a really hard time showing up on this camera. And this is going to test network security, internet speed, bandwidth, upload and download, ping times, gateways, Wi-Fi interference shows up. Let me turn these studio lights off. I was really having a hard time seeing. Let's try doing it this way. You'll see my internet connection here is not good. Let me scroll through there. And it goes through this whole assessment of your Wi-Fi. Now let me cancel this. And let's get out of this app and go to the main router app. It's called Tether. TP-Link's app is called Tether. And when we bring that up, we can get all kinds of information on the network. If we want to share the network with a friend, we can even hit a button that generates a QR code that they can point their phone camera at and automatically gives them the SSID and password for whichever network you want. You'll see this router has 3 different channels, the 2.4, the 5, and a 6. And then at the very bottom here, we have a bunch of options. So we have the clients that are connected. We have one called security. AI protection. You can turn these on or off as you want them. We go down to the next one. It says family. These are family control tools, parental controls. You can disable the internet on a time schedule to disconnect the Xbox, for example, after a certain time. And then you have all of these fun little things to play with, such as network diagnostics, network performance optimization. If I hit that, we'll hit the scan button. And this will give us what channel we're on, what channel we should be on, if there's a better channel that's less noisy. And it evaluates your network so you don't have to guess. And Asus and Netgear all have very similar tools. They're not in the router though. You have to download the app on the phone to take advantage of these. And in just a minute, we should get some results. Analyze channel congestion, perfect. So everything's running as it should. There's another one that gave us a bunch of information here. You'll see the share Wi-Fi link right down there. That will create the QR code. That's someone else's phone. They just point their phone camera at the QR code and it gives them the SSID and password. These are the LED controls on the router. So we can turn the LEDs off on the router, or we can turn them off at night automatically if the router's in a room you're trying to sleep in. Again, not a feature I found in the router, but only on the software. There's one mesh, that's to configure a mesh network. If for some reason this router isn't getting your signal all the way across your house, which it should be, you must have a very large house. QoS, it's prioritizing data packets. IPTV and VLAN settings are all in here. There's a lot in these online apps that isn't necessarily in the router. At the same time, there are items in the router that aren't in the app, like setting up VPN or port forwarding and things like that. They have to be done through the router itself, through the regular interface. And so, you have all these options at the bottom. And again, Asus has theirs, TP-Link has theirs, and Netgear has theirs. I imagine Linksys probably has one as well. They're not compatible with each other, so the Wi-Fi analyzer for TP-Link isn't going to work on your router that's not TP-Link or not compatible with that app. It's something that's included at the added price point of these routers. And let me see here. Okay, I'm all caught up. Is QoS quality of service? Yes, QoS is basically saying if the data packets are coming from this connected computer, prioritize them over everybody else. So if you're gaming or you're in a Zoom meeting and other people are using your bandwidth and you're stuttering, your video is stuttering or your audio is stuttering, you want your data to take priority over everybody else's. Or somebody in the house is downloading something and it's taking up all the bandwidth, you can throttle them down to a certain percentage of maximum bandwidth usage so it doesn't affect everybody else at the building, whether that's a house or a company. You can watch NetworkChuck about load balancers when we get into the high-end stuff in the corporate environment. And I don't use QoS because I'm the only user, so I'm automatically prioritized because I'm the only data. The IoT, the Internet of Things around Studio B, they don't consume much, so they don't impact me at all. But if I was sharing the internet here with other people that were using it heavily, streaming movies while I'm trying to upload, then yes, I would turn on QoS for that reason. John Doe says, my Wi-Fi router is probably 15 years old. I guess I should consider upgrading. Well, it's up to you if you want to stay secure, if you want faster Wi-Fi performance. You're probably connecting a lot of things to it now than you were 15 years ago. So you may not be using that router as it was intended to be used because of what the technology was limited to, which was very limited 15 years ago compared to what routers can do today with regards to the number of connections they can have. Beamforming technology extends the range of a router's ability to broadcast out much, much further. Multi-user, multi-in, multi-out, allowing multiple people to use the router at the same time. If it's just you and there's nobody else in the house and you don't have any of these problems, you've got all the range you need, you think it's fast enough? Hey, don't fix it if it ain't broke. XRod666 says, I watch some of NetworkChuck's videos on where you can make your own router. Yeah, like pfSense, sure. And it'll cost you as much as these high-end routers when it's all said and done. And you'll have a real fun time diagnosing when something doesn't work. Because There's a ton of things. I, for one, wouldn't do that. I would just buy myself a nice router that's configurable enough. I don't need that granular level of control because it makes diagnosing far more difficult. But to each his own. TWC Codster says, I have one of those routers you reviewed from Asus. It's on my wish list on Amazon. And I gave the wish list out to everyone I know. I'm hoping someone gets it for me. Good luck for that. You know what? I hope they do too. Andy wants to know, is it 60% off Acronis for new accounts? No, you're confusing the two offers. 60% off RoboForm for new accounts. 40% off Acronis for all accounts. MIB Pro wants to know, is a mesh access point, what does it say? So a mesh access point lets go of weak connection of a mobile device. I'm not quite sure I understand your question. It doesn't really have much to do with the device. It has to do with the routers. Now, obviously, if there's something wrong with the device, there's nothing the router can do to help that. Daco says, I love watching Carrie. Thanks. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, Daco. Ron Barnish says, there are no Corsair 200Rs at Corsair. They're out of stock. Right. That's why when I told you they were in stock, to buy them now, don't wait, because they won't stay in stock for long. They will come back in stock, but I don't know when. So we're not living in a world where you can just make demands and say, I want it today. With a lot of stuff because of distribution issues with the pandemic and everything, we're still catching up. So if you're something you know you're going to want and it's available now, get it now. Those routers for $130, they're not going to be available if you say, I'll do it next month. It likely won't be available next month. It might or it might not. So because you didn't buy it when I told you they were in stock, I warned you. Now they're not in stock. So if you want that price, to pay the regular MSRP, you buy directly from Corsair and watch the site daily, because they will go within a matter of a day or two. If they've restocked since the last time I did a video on it, I don't know, because I'm not revisiting the site every day. I don't need any more. I ordered a bunch of them because I knew this was going to happen. If you want to be demanding and say, I want it today, then you'll pay the scalpers prices, that $180 from the UK. Again, that's not direct from Corsair. That's somebody just essentially scalping. So that's how scalping works. It's supply and demand. So if you knew you were going to buy one, you need to watch the site every day. They go in stock and out of stock very, very quickly. So it could be in stock the one day you didn't check. Sometimes sometimes viewers reach out to me and tell me, hey, those $200 are in stock. When they do that, I'll often then let you guys know. So if people aren't telling me and I'm not checking, I don't know how many times they've been restocked since the last time I talked about it. But given the pandemic and the way that things have been, my advice to you is when there is something you're interested in but you're not quite ready for it, do know that it may not be available when you're ready for it. And that's the way things have been now for about 2 years. I hope things will go back to normal soon, but I don't have any control over that. But Corsair still lists the product in their catalog. They're just having a hard time getting them. They're not doing it on purpose. Things have been delayed by, in some cases, over a year. There's a little Space Invaders arcade game I ordered over a year ago, and it's only just now entering production a year later. I put a deposit down for this little arcade game, just a little arcade game, over a year ago. I still don't have it. But it's not just me, it's everyone. Nobody has it. All these delays and the price that it was supposed to be, the price has gone up because of inflation and because of the cost of getting the goods to make the arcade. The manufacturer's cost has gone up. All right, guys. So that'll wrap it up for me for today. Thank you again for joining and for all the contributions. Christopher Harris, XRod666, Nicholas Menard, Barry Russ, and Stan Ristoff, the Greek and Ricky B, and Patrick Manny, and Dennis Kine, and Marvin Jameson, and everybody else who I can't remember in this moment. I do appreciate all of you, even if my memory isn't so good. I will see you all again very, very soon. As a reminder, I always do a live video every Friday. That's 1 o'clock Arizona time. I've been using Pacific time lately because it's more recognizable than Arizona time. Arizona never changes our clocks. We do not honor daylight saving time. So for half of the year, in the fall, in the spring, we're the same time as Pacific time. But in the fall, when Pacific time rolls their clocks back an hour, we do not. So 1 o'clock Arizona time is always the same all year round. But half of the year, it's the same time in California and in the Pacific time, right? Nevada, Oregon, Washington. And then half of the year, because they all roll their clocks back an hour, then it's noon. So time zones get a little tricky. Essentially, during the winter, it's 12 noon Pacific time, which is 3 p.m. Eastern, every single Friday. And if you just happen to be in Arizona, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon all year round. So I hope you will tune in then. I will make videos as time permits throughout the middle of the week, like today. I may be back again tomorrow if I have the time. I have no shortage of content to share with you. And in the meantime, check out the channels I'm recommending for more detailed learnings, such as NetworkChuck, the animated PowerCerts, and ITProTV. Pro IT TV? It's one of those. All the links are in the video notes. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all very, very soon. And until then, bye for now.